What's up? What's up? What's up? It's 2021.
Woo!
Welcome back. It's the collective with y'all.
New
I'm
year.
and I see alongside.
What's up, everybody? It is your first lady, Miss Bernadine Truth. I am so excited to be on air with you all. I'm excited to be joining you all in 2021.
I know.
2020 ended just in
New
challenge.
year.
So it was tough. It was tough. So it was a difficult ending, but I'm so excited to be here with a new beginning. So what's up, NIC? How are you? Happy New Year to the TUC world, to TUC family. We're so excited to connect with everybody.
I know. Happy New Year to you as well, co-host. Hopefully it's a prosperous New Year. Hopefully it's better than last year. I think the year will top last year. Well, let's not say that.
The end of 2020 was difficult for me, but I will say 2020 was great. You know, it's just, it ended with some challenges and it ended with some unexpected difficulties that, you know, I think could have set one back, but I'm taking it and I'm like, listen, everything happens for a reason. So got to make this count, you know, new perspectives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. And of course, you know, we got to start the show with the week that was. A few good things happened at the top of this year. We got rid of 45. We brought in 46.
I would say let's hold off to that one because that one's gonna have to have a minute. I would actually let's switch it a little bit. I think we should start with like some pop culture and sports and end.
And with that, okay.
Yeah, I'm like, we can't just be like 46, boop, boop, like 46.
I'm not excited about it together.
Right. I was like, no. We can't just do that. We can't do that. But, you know, pop culture, there was this film that you were talking about. I hear a lot of people talking about it, actually.
Yes. Actually, for that. So American Skin is a movie that came out. I believe it was in a festival last summer. And it's made its way onto a platform. So if you have on demand, you can order it. Also, if you have, I watched it on Prime on there. So It was a great movie. The whole premise of the movie is about a story of a man that lost his son and his actions and what he does. He felt like essentially, he did not get like many others in the past. It's kind of close to life sometimes, but he felt like they did not convict the police officer or even give him a trial for that. So he was just like, I felt like my son was not heard. His story was not heard. Nothing was done. So the premise of the story goes, a Marine veteran working as a school janitor tries to mend his relationship with his son after a divorce. When his son is killed by a police officer found innocent without standing trial, he takes matters into his own hands. That's the most important part of the movie. Because I'm going to give it away. If I tell you anything more, it's going to
I feel like at this point, taking matters into his own hands only means but one thing.
Not what you think.
Not what you think? Okay.
No, and that's the good thing I like about it, because when you see the trailer for the movie, they make it seem like he goes crazy, he goes off, but it's completely different from what ends up happening in the actual movie. It's basically the portion that you see in the trailer is maybe 30 seconds of what happens in the movie. So they did a great job with it in the trailer. So it's a beautiful movie. I loved it. It made me really think. And then I find myself looking at things differently, especially nowadays, because I have a son. So it really made me look at it very, very differently. Amari Hardwick is in there, Theo Rossi, Bo Knapp. So it's a good movie. There's a lot of different. The acting is pretty great in there. So it was written by, what's his name?
You're giving the whole bio right now. I'm gonna tell people.
Nate Parker.
American Skin.
Nate Parker wrote it, directed it also. So he did his thing with this movie. I'll give him that. I know Nate Parker, you know, had a little issues and everything, but he did a great job with this movie. It was a good movie. Movie. Definitely go check it out. American Skin. Pay the $5.99. Go stream that.
I'm not paying the $5.99, but I'll definitely join somebody's movie night. So if you're about to play it, let me know. I'll come by.
Really?
Wait, I wanted to also say, I mean, not I would say this is a little bit of pop culture, but also as we transition into the world of sports, I'd like to take a moment of silence because this is the 1-year anniversary of Kobe and G.D. Bryant today, and also, you know, a number of other folks who lost their lives. For those of you who don't know, Kobe Bryant and his daughter were in a plane crash unexpectedly. I mean, nobody plans a plane crash, right? A year ago on the way to Gigi's basketball practice. And it took the world by storm, right? I think everybody was just, you know, it was a weekend day, and I think everybody was just operating how they naturally were, and, you know, started hearing the news of their passing and were shocked and surprised. And some people thought it was, you know, alternative facts like fake news, but it was actually reported and confirmed that they did in fact pass away from the crash. And so, like I said, I like to take a couple of seconds of silence just in their honor and in their memory. Yes, so Mamba for life, Mambacitas, and all of that, Team Mamba. And continuing in the world of sports, not to necessarily just gloss over such a tragic element of life, because I know Vanessa Bryant has been super interactive with folks and sharing photos and silly moments with her daughters and those who have been able to live beyond Gigi and Kobe, right? But, you know, and I think that she put out a statement a couple of weeks ago letting people know that as this day comes to pass, to not repost like photos and videos of the accident and the crash and all of that, because that's like re-triggering what's going on in her life as she continues to heal. But again, I think anytime anybody loses a loved one is tragic, and it's really hard to bounce back, let alone a mom to lose her partner in life and then also one of her own children. So let's continue to keep them in our hearts and in our prayers as life continues to persist. But, you know, in the world of sports, some more, I got to shout out. I mean, I don't really want to shout him out, but Tom Brady, I guess, is like the NFL GOAT or whatever. So I got to give him his credit or whatever. You know, it's a little, don't be looking at me like that, NIC. I just feel like, yeah, you know.
I'm petty. I'm sorry.
He's a football GOAT. Like, he's doing his thing. He's going into
he left us to go to greener pastures.
No, so, he left because Bill Belichick was disrespecting him. So he had to like make you know what I mean? Like show people like, hey, if you're not going to respect me as one of the leading players in the NFL, then I'm going to take my talents out there and look what happened.
I understand why. I'm just saying I'm petty. Like, you see what's behind me? Like I'm Patriots lifer. You know, so
10th. The 10th. He's going into the 10th Super Bowl right now, which I think is like wild.
Yeah.
It's going to air on February 7th. He's going to go as Tampa Bay Buccaneers face the Kansas City Chiefs. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that game's going to be wild. I wonder what Bill Belichick is doing with himself, right? As he's just like, yeah, whatever, Brady. But then it's just like, he's just like, I don't need y'all. Like when I can play, I can play. So whatever team I'm on, they go into the Super Bowl.
I know.
Did the Patriots make it to the Super Bowl this year?
What happened?
Did the Patriots make it to the Super Bowl?
They didn't make it to the playoffs. Like,
thank you. And who was missing?
If he's the only one, I'm going to say that. This year, we have about 7 players that opted out due to COVID.
But in this situation,
you know,
who was missing?
Yeah, you know, our quarterback. Yeah,
and who's going?
Hey.
Okay.
Let's move on, okay? Because okay.
No rumors speculate that Brady, you know, supports people who are not necessarily the most culturally competent individuals and like, you know, white supremacists and all of that. I'm not a fan. No, seriously. I don't support all of that. I don't support discriminating against us.
He's had some questionable stuff that he's done in the past, and you know, so we'll see. But at the same time, though, he's given chance to a lot of brothers in this league. He's made a I was reading this article about like how many people he's made multi-millionaires that's played with him that are black that would have never gotten paid the way they got paid, and it happened because they played with them, won championship, and later was able to get better deals. So, you know,
Catch-22s. One day I'll share my views on the NFL and how I think in general the world of athleticism takes advantage of black and brown folk for its own, you know, benefits and gains. But I'm like, that is what it is. I don't know if you wanted to update people on the Pats in the NBA.
Yeah, the NBA, we have, of course, The Celtics are doing good. They've lost the past few games. They lost 2 games to Philadelphia. We have the Brooklyn Nets who made a heist, and they got our boy James Harden went over there. So now it's the trio of James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving playing all on one team. So they should make it out the East. We'll see what happens. The Lakers are still good. NBA is doing pretty well. They haven't had to cancel as many games as we thought they would have had to cancel. So that's been a great thing because they are isolating. There's still no fans allowed in the arenas and everything, unlike the NFL, which is allowing fans into arenas. So they're not doing that at all right now, and it's been good. So I think they have to cancel about 15 games. If you think about it, every team is playing 72 games. So to cancel 15 over the course of a month is not that much when each team is playing about 15 games a month out of 32 teams. So hundreds of games that got played. So they've been doing a good job. Shout out to them to how they're doing it. One of the things that they are going to start doing is doing awareness for the vaccines that are out there, making videos. They started doing that on MLK Day, that launch. So that's pretty good. So we'll see if they continue with that message to help people get and take more of these vaccines and get rid of this damn virus out of our vocabulary.
Out of the city of Boston altogether. I'm like, and speaking of that virus, though, I'm like, for local news, Boston. Listen, I don't know how many of you keep track of all of the announcements from the governor and the mayor talking about what's going on in the city of Boston regarding COVID, but most recently, as of tomorrow anyway, the stay at home advisory is going to be lifted. It was voluntarily folks were able to make sure that they stayed home from the hours of 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. But now that that's going to be lifted, people will have more of an option of just being out and about, I guess, during those hours. Restrictions on gatherings is still going to stay the same, people. It's still the same. So if you're having people inside of your house, 10 people, listen, I'm all set. I had COVID and I'm one and done. It's still limited to 10 people, and outdoor gatherings are still limited to 25 people. I think it's winter season in the New England area, so I think it's easier for folks to kind of stay to themselves. But I do want people to understand that COVID is real. Full disclosure, I tested COVID positive during the holiday season, and I had it, and it was really bad. And I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't smell, I couldn't taste, and I was also very scared during that time. And I think that, for people who think it's not real and for people who think it's not that serious, it is in fact that serious. I came from still bringing my friends together to recognizing the importance of minimizing the community, minimizing how much I interact and engage with the community physically. So it's real out there, folks, and I want you all to stay safe. Early business closures are ending. So before, restaurants couldn't stay open past 9:30. Now that's not necessarily the case. So you can still go out to eat. But again, I just caution people to eat 6 feet apart. If you don't have to go out to eat, don't do it. I know people really want to. I myself enjoy going out to eat every once in a while, maybe twice a week. But
you realize I'm staying silent during this part, right, Collective?
Yeah, I know. You're really letting me speak to myself. It's
because if I get started, go ahead. Continue.
That's it. That's all I got. You're right. It's just it for an extrovert who's being told to stay in her house all day, every day. It's not exciting. I have learned to accept the excitement of my own walls.
Yeah. By yourself, listen to music by yourself, enjoy your company. Be at one with yourself. If you can't be at one with yourself, I think this is one thing a lot of people have realized during COVID. They cannot be alone. Right. A lot of people I've seen have been like, I didn't realize how much I need to be out and about and doing stuff all the time. And some people will take a day here or there, a week, a month, 6 months. You're like, woo.
The thing is, I can be home by myself. I had many moments where I enjoyed my alone time and my refuge to just be me, myself, and I. But I think that the challenge was when doing it by choice and doing it by force are totally different, right? And so I think it's important to implement the level of, interaction with other people, but then also being alone, right? Because you want to reflect, you want to regroup, you want to pour into your own cup before you pour into other people's. But this everyday thing just wasn't. It was tough. It still is tough, but I think I'm becoming more settled in this as we're about to hit a whole year in March.
Right around the corner.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
You know what? I won't talk about COVID.
Right. Let's talk about some positive.
Yes. Yes.
News.
Yes. Again, 45 is out.
That's it.
46 is in.
46 is in. Who's 46?
Who is 46? We have Joseph Biden Jr. I keep forgetting he's a junior.
He's a junior.
Yeah, I always forget that he's a junior. He's not somebody that really talks about that too much. But Biden has been sworn in on January 20th. We thought there was a lot of, brouhaha that was stewing because of everything that happened on January 6th, the insurrection that happened from, I will say it, the terrorists that tried to take over the Capitol. But everything went without a hitch, which I was very happy about.
Me too.
That it happened. I always try to watch other channels to see their point of views. So I was watching Fox, and there's this network called AON. It's very, very like pro-Trump. They didn't even air the inauguration. Like,
oh wow, they were in their feelings. They were hurt.
So during that inauguration, they were talking about the works of 45. Literally, I was like, really? You're not gonna cover the biggest news that's happened?
But that's what bigotry and racism does, right? Like people don't even want to engage and interact with you. Like we saw what was happening in Capitol Hill, like you said a couple weeks before, and so this happened. Honestly, one of the highlights, of course, the new president and having it be a Democratic House is hopefully a positive, right? But then it's also the inauguration of the first vice president of color, period. So Kamala Harris, first VP of like a first Black woman, first South Asian woman to be in that position is truly a highlight. We were on air before where I said that, initially my initial reaction to her being elected, I wasn't as excited. I felt like Stacey Abrams came with the guns and was going to be a lot more affirmative and assertive in the role. But nonetheless, women band together and comes together. And as a woman supporting another woman, I have to cheer her on. And so, like I said before, this is just the beginning. This is not the end, right? Them being inaugurated is not the end. We still have to think critically. We still have to hold them accountable. We still have to watch what this dynamic duo is doing. But they really put a lot of people of color and women in positions during this time. And so I'm excited to see what this new generation of women in leadership is going to look like for our country, both on a national level, but then also on a domestic level, as we think about what can happen in the city of Boston, right? Because Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is still going back and forth. She's still engaging with folks. So again, to have that VP in there was amazing. To have the youngest poet ever to recite something in the inauguration at 22 years old. I'm like, shout out to Harvard grad 2020.
Amanda Gorman. She did her thing.
She did her thing. And her piece, if you missed it, was titled The Hill We Climb. And what's wild about her story to me is that she had a speech impediment. And so I think it was just about 2 years ago where she really learned how to pronounce and enunciate her R's, right? And so for her to be able to do that and talk about the power of educators, a teacher inspired her and encouraged her, and that changed her life. And so here she is at 22 years old doing what she did and sharing her talents with the world, like truly phenomenal. So Amanda Gorman, like, you have my love and you have my respect, and thank you again for letting people know the power and the beauty in art and self-expression, but while also holding us critically accountable to not just our thoughts, but our actions and how we're living in America and what it means to truly be a human citizen of the world. So
yes. So it was amazing. I'm glad that we are in a new era. And the first day was good that it happened. It was the next few days that was different for me. And what I mean by that is I did not turn on the news and have to listen to another crazy tweet by our leader, the leader of this country. Let me not say not our leader, the leader of this country. So I turned on the TV and it was people getting work done. It wasn't a scandal. I felt like I wasn't watching Scandal. Right. Like it was not a scandal happening. It was just like, okay, this is what needs to happen. How do we get this to happen? We need more COVID vaccines to be given to the American people. How do we do that? Okay, let's do this. This is a plan. Let's work
Right.
on this plan to make it happen. Versus in the past, it's gonna happen. We're gonna get this done. This is it, and nothing.
Right. No,
Uh,
it's true. They move swiftly, right? And even talking about the discussion that was happening even before when Trump was in office about school loans and what they're going to do with that. And so there was a conversation with that,
so mad.
whether or not we're going to pay them.
I just refinanced my loans. I'm like,
should have held off. I know. I paid some dues and took out a loan for law school, and I'm like, should I just?
yeah,
like,
man. I was like, damn it.
So we'll see.
I still gotta check
but I say like that's they're moving, right? Like you were saying, and I think that even with like the stimulus packages, they're gonna share that out with people. And so I think like it's very clear that this new administration had come in organized and had come in prepared, and I think that they needed to be because of who they were opposed with, right? And so if you weren't crossing your T's and dotting your I's, then you'd be coming in almost not changing a world that like not really implementing dents where dents needed to be made. And so they're coming in to make that happen. Trump pardoned so many people before he left.
It's the most.
This world is just different, but
it's the most that's happened.
Discrimination is still real, but hope is also still real, right? And so Barack Obama was the president, and he instilled a level of hope in folks. And I want us to come back to that and say hope is still real. And so it's up to us to continue to let that go. To continue to let that go in the sense of like keeping it alive so that we can continue to maintain. Yeah. So that's wild though. And like you said, like him being in office, Biden and Kamala, like you almost like forgot you got a president, but not because
it's like having a reliable driver.
Yeah, like you're just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Okay.
You got this. Keep doing your thing.
That's it. So
we'll see what happens. We'll let you guys know. As you know, we always update and let you know of our opinions on how they're doing. So we'll continue to follow with that. And then also with local Boston politics, there's a lot that's coming this year, y'all. So stay tuned to the Urban Collective. We'll make sure we keep you updated and let you know of our opinions, because we got some opinions about everything that's happening around the city and around the U.S. But of course, without further ado, we have a special guest I'm going to bring on. We always like to interview the movers and shakers inside the city of Boston. And this young lady is doing her thing right now. We wanted to start off the year with her. So let me add her into the screen.
Hey.
Welcome.
Sure, we like your shirt.
That's a nice shirt. Where'd you get that, huh?
Where'd you get that shirt at?
I was looking at y'all backstage, like, when did they buy a shirt?
We had to support. But before we just jump into conversation, I do want to take a moment to introduce all of our amazing viewers to who you are. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you all to Genevieve Bien-Aime, who is a Haitian-American serial entrepreneur, curator of Boston culture, and a connector. She's the brains and operations behind The Other Boston, a platform she created to bring visibility to and highlight the Black Boston experience. At the beginning of the pandemic, Genevieve launched a merch line under The Other Boston platform, flooding the streets of Boston with her signature Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Hyde Park t-shirts and hoodies, which is what we're wearing right now. To date, Genevieve's proudest accomplishment has been attracting the attention of many Boston city councilors, including Boston mayoral candidate Andrea Campbell and even Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. Genevieve's background includes a unique mix of media experience that includes photography, podcasting, and event blogging, combined with her talent for marketing and building community on and offline. Genevieve's ultimate goal is to create spaces for the many different communities that exist within Black Boston. This month, in partnership with Sublime Love Brands, she launched Catch These Vibes Virtual Lounge, a monthly artist showcase, open mic, and purposeful platform to highlight local talent. When Genevieve isn't working on The Other Boston, she can likely be found working on her other businesses, some of which include the Brunch Club Boston, a series of brunch events meant to normalize Black people taking up space in the traditionally white spaces of Boston, and Mona and Eve, an online plus-size consignment store. You can keep up with Genevieve and all of her endeavors by following her on Instagram at Genevieve_Angelique and Twitter. You're gonna have to help me with this one, but Gina, at Gina Leak. So I'm sure Genevieve can share all of that with you all and the spelling as we close out with this interview. But I'm so excited to have you here, Genevieve. It's been so long since I've seen you in person.
It's been so long since I've seen anybody.
Yeah.
I can relate. I actually can realize that I'm more of a homebody than I realize, because I'm like, I don't, every once in a while I crave being out, but most of the time I'm fine with being in the house. So
yeah, you're not going crazy. You're not missing the brunches. And
right, you're out here carrying so much culture without being in the culture. You're like, you'd rather be behind the scenes with it all.
I like behind the scenes. I don't like being what people think I'm out all the time, or I was. Now, when I was, because I was doing the event blogging, but I'm in the house or I'm at work.
That's it.
I got you.
Focused.
Exactly. You're staying safe, staying positive, which is a good thing. That we need more people to do that nowadays, especially during these COVID times. So one of the things I really wanted to kind of get into with you was The Other Boston. What made you launch The Other Boston?
Well, it was a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago. It had another name, Boston Come Through. And really it was the events list. I started blogging at the same time, but it was like, I was just tired of that same story. Like there's nothing to do here. Boston is whack, yada, yada, yada. And I get it, because I grew up in Cambridge, but I went to school in DC. So, coming up in DC, like, and then coming home, it's very different. Like, it's almost like culture shock, because in DC, you throw a rock and you hit a Black person, and, you don't have to plan. Like, I feel like in Boston, you have to, like, really plan a night out. Like, logistics down. Like, you know what I mean? It costs money, where DC, it's like, we're just going to go to U Street and walk up and down and we'll find something, Mm-hmm. And so while it's not like a DC or an ATL, I'm like, there's still amazing people here. There's people doing like amazing work. There's an amazing music scene. There's an amazing artist scene. There's an amazing entrepreneur scene. There's amazing scenes like on every level. And this city is full of like hustlers and doers. And, I think people here are very ambitious, and we're not really known for that, because, people don't really know that we're here. But I wanted to create a platform to kind of highlight that, and I guess to shift the narrative and shift. I'm like all about solutions at the end of the day. Like, we can talk the problem to death forever, but it's like, what are we going to do about it?
What are you going to do about it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of, like, what are we going to do about it, right? So creating this platform initially, and you said like 4 years ago, right? Where here we are now, persisting through further unprecedented times with COVID, right? Pandemic. And so the pandemic has impacted people in a number of ways. It has further exacerbated like disparities that plague the Black community further, right? So how has the pandemic impacted you in the work that you're looking to do? And based on your interaction with entrepreneurs, like, how do you think it's impacted them?
Sure. For me personally, I think we were all like, for me, I was kind of like thinking this was going to be over in a few weeks, so whatever. And then at some point it kind of clicked, like, oh, like this is long term for however long. I think just the constant adjustment to life, what we thought was normal, was hard. And then, but at the same time, for me, it gave me a break. I'm always doing a little too much, and with everything being shut down, I got a break. I had some time to like kind of focus on myself, focus on my brand. I think that was the other thing, like, what do I do? Because I run an events list, so it's like, what am I posting about? So after like that initial like WTF, right? I think, it was just figuring out how to pivot. And I think as an entrepreneur, that's kind of like the number one skill you need to have is to learn how to pivot and pivot quickly. The t-shirts, I had the idea, I just didn't have the time to execute it, because it is just me that runs the brand. But it gave me time, so that's really what I got. Like, it was like almost a gift. Like, I got the gift of time, so I had time to like put it together, figure it out, research it, and then the time to also like test something out too, because no one, a lot of times people see the fruit, they see the end result, but don't realize like all the work that went into putting something out there. The second part of your question, I think for everybody, whether you're a business owner or not, it's just figuring out like what do I do? Like, like what does one do? Like, I think we're still trying to figure that out. Like, what do you do? So for me, it was just, and I'm still figuring it out. Cause like right now, like the merch isn't on sale. My life has changed, and as anybody that does anything, whether you're a creative, an entrepreneur, a parent, like there's just so many parts of your life and one affects the other. For me, I also had time because I wasn't working full time either. So I had, I could do what I want, and I was loving it because that's really how I want to live my life, is on my own time.
That's it.
But now that's not really the case. So for me, it's just trying to figure out like, how do I move to the next, like what's the next step? And I haven't 100% figured that out yet. And that's okay too. So
yes, please normalize that it's okay to not know. I think that
exactly.
We've heard so much. So many comments have been made too during the pandemic. Like, listen, if you're not doing anything during this pandemic, then you would never do this. Then you weren't really about anything. And I could definitely understand those sentiments, right? I mean, I think I've been guilty even of saying them myself. But on the other hand, like, no, people are also, this is a culture shock and a shift for folks.
Mhm.
So having to adapt and having to adjust to this new normal, and knowing that our old normal also wasn't the best version of life and hustling and grinding to begin with, is like, it's taking people a moment, right, to like adapt to this. And even to be on platforms like this where we're conversing and interacting virtually, I'm like, what is it gonna be like when we're in person again?
Right.
Like, we're gonna have to like readjust.
So weird.
Because you're just so used to being virtual at this point.
I know.
So thank you. Absolutely. Time has definitely exposed itself and dispersed itself to the hands of entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off of what you said, I completely agree. I think sometimes you can start sipping the Kool-Aid too, with that whole like team no sleep and
yes,
birds. That's a whole lie out here. I just caught up. I think I slept more last year than I did in like probably the last 4 or 5 years. And it was amazing. And I think if anything, what I learned is like, you really got to take self-inventory and like, why are we doing what we're doing, and why are we moving the way that we move? And I'm amazed that we spent this much time outside and going to places, and I don't want to go back to that, to be honest. So
who are we doing it for, right? Like, why are we doing it?
Exactly. It kind of reminds you, it's like, there's certain things you can go without. I think that's what it's shown all of us out there. So Genevieve, I know you're an entrepreneur. You've blogged, posted podcasts, you've done photography. How has that helped you in your entrepreneurial endeavors nowadays, especially during COVID?
I think the one thing you learn is, well, at least that I believe in, is that like every experience serves a purpose. I believe in doing things with intention, but I'm like, you're always learning. At least for me, I'm always learning how to do something new, or meeting somebody new. And for me, all that experience kind of, you use it somewhere down the line. Like, like it all comes full circle at some point. So I may not blog necessarily anymore, but I'll need those skills. To be a blogger, or to be an entrepreneur, especially you wear a lot of hats, especially if you're not like the type of startup and you're getting all this funding. You do literally everything yourself. So every single skill, like I did photography, and I learned that I'm not really a photographer. Like, I could take a nice photo here and there. I'm not going to be the person getting on the ground and get that perfect shot. So I know that's not really my lane. But if I need to take some photos, I can do that. You know what I mean? And so for me, all of those skills, they either help me or help someone else. And they always come full circle at the end of the day. Like I really am a believer, like all your experiences come full circle at some point.
You learn your strength. You learn what you're good at, and you learn what you can do and what you can't do. Especially as an entrepreneur, you need to learn what you can't do, because it comes to a point where if you're trying to do everything yourself, you're gonna be buried. So you need that help. You need to know when to ask that, and that's one of the things about being an entrepreneur. Like you said,
I'm just trying to do it all, so I definitely get that too, right? And I'm like, we can't, that whole like masters of one versus masters of none. You can't be masters of even one if you don't try something, right? So it's boring, but you also got to reel it in a little bit. And if you have personality, like I think like all of us do, where we have various interests, it's hard to kind of like reel it in, but you have to, right? It gives you time back, and it helps to give you a sense of direction. But you said something, that I think reminded me of the sentiments about like lifting as we climb. And so here you are, like you mentioned, you have a database where you're like sharing, you were sharing events that were taking place. You're connected with like other entrepreneurs to know what was going on in the world. How have you been able to support and lift as you climb now? And how have you pivoted really in doing that given the pandemic? Like, how are you interacting and supporting other entrepreneurs and people in your day-to-day and in the work that you're doing and on your platforms?
Sure. I'm just someone, I just love sharing information and resources. Like, I feel like I'm very resourceful. People DM me all the time, and I'm trying to work on that because I really don't have the time like that. But if people DM me and people have like, hey, do you know da 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 da? Like, I really will stop and try to figure that out. Or like people I don't even know, like I will hop on a phone call and talk to you. I do have a pretty good circle of like entrepreneur friends, so I feel like, especially with new entrepreneurs, I love talking to entrepreneurs. But it's like one of my things is like you have to find your tribe, because it's a very
find your tribe.
Yeah, it's a very unique journey, and it's a very hard journey. Like people make it look glamorous on social media, but the truth is that's like 1% of the time. The rest of it is like this continuous ups and downs. As far as helping other people, like I just naturally do that. Like I do consider myself a connector. Like I do really, I take my time to learn about other people and remember things. So if I come across some resource and I'm like, oh, I remember Bernadine had said blah, 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 like I'm going to send it to you. As far as like using those strengths, I actually, it's funny that you bring it up. I am working with 2 other friends to put together kind of like what we call like a support group for entrepreneurs, because there's a lot of help out there in terms of like how to do things and processes and things like that. But I don't feel like a lot of times there's enough time spent talking about like just the emotional journey of entrepreneurship and just, the toll it can take on you. Like in terms of like, I have friends who are entrepreneurs, and like I have one, and she'll tell you like, she's like, I don't have any friends like right now. And it's because sometimes you're so, that's part of her, your process growth. Yeah. You're knee deep in that. And she's like a full-time entrepreneur. So if she don't work, she don't eat. You know what I mean? So it's hard to explain that to people who aren't entrepreneurs and do the 9-to-5 thing only. But I'm trying to, right now I am working on a way to kind of like formalize that, because I naturally do that. But I think for me, I don't have as much time as I did before. And I kind of want to, spread more awareness. So creating this group of entrepreneurs is kind of the way that I'm going right now.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And I think also, which I think you're being humble too. Like if people send you events, like you will post them, you will share them, right? And so I think part of that is people following the at the other Boston, so that they can, 1, know what's going on, but 2, use that platform to like share information with you, so that you can help identify where and if it's something that should definitely be blacklisted and shared out within the community. So I thank you for providing that common platform for folks.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So, with you working with a lot of different entrepreneurs, what are some of the biggest obstacles that you see in Boston that they face? Especially, I would say, the people of color being entrepreneurs in this city. We know it's hard, but Boston and being people of color here, it makes it extra hard, I feel, to be an entrepreneur. What's some of the stuff you've seen?
I think with a lot of things, we just have additional barriers to entrepreneurship. I think one is it's not often encouraged. I think we're always told to do the school route, which I agree with, but at the same time, like for me, I went to college and I really struggled like through college. Like I'm really smart, but I really struggled. And now knowing what I know about myself, I'm like, oh, it's because, I was doing what I was told I was supposed to do as opposed to what might have been a better fit for me.
Mm.
So I don't think we're encouraged to do that, especially if you're first generation like myself.
Yeah.
It's like go to school and get a job, get a good job. That's it.
That's it.
This business thing. If it don't pay you any money, why are you
Crazy?
Like, what are passions and hobbies? Like, no,
right?
we
Right.
survive and maintain.
Right. So like even when I had the podcast, my mom to this day is like, that radio thing that you did, like to her, it's like it didn't pay, so it's not important.
Mm-hmm.
I think, access to funding. A lot of us are bootstrap. I need for me, I'm bootstrapping. So there's that. And I think time is like a huge thing for me. Like a lot of times we look at and we idolize these other people we've heard, like these huge names, but they have resources, they have wealth, like they can, people always talk about Bill Gates, dropping out of Harvard. And it's like, but Bill Gates had a trust fund. Like, so whether or not he finished Harvard, like he was still going to be good. You know what I mean? So I think the risk is greater for us, and I think there's just additional barriers that we face. Like for me, I was like, I would love to do this full time, but I can't right now. I can't do this full time and pay all my bills like I want to. So it's a lot.
Absolutely. And I think you're spot on too when thinking about the element of capital, right? That's what you're talking about. So like being born into capital and then having to acquire capital is totally different, right? Coming into this conversation at a place where your plate is overflowing and so full, or when you have like one grain on it and you're trying to make it last you a whole week, is totally different. Right. But you talked about, a little bit about like that Haitian cultural experience, right? Which actually segues perfectly into like my question for you, because I think so much about how we function as like I'm a first generation as well. First generation, anybody, but particularly for us, first generation Haitians, is like we have the pride of our families on our backs and their expectations in addition to our own. And then when you are an American, right, you have like the melting pot of like the American way versus the Haitian way. And so that's what, and then Haitians, mind you, are entrepreneurs too and are hustlers.
We are.
But when they come to America, they're like, no.
Right.
No time for hustles. Get the job, right? But how have you, like what aspects of your adolescent experiences, I mean, to go into your life a little bit personally and let us know if we're going too deep, but what parts of like your adolescence and your cultural upbringing has empowered you, but has also limited you, right? Because I think that that dichotomy of like the positives and the negatives of how we're brought up and how we learn to love ourselves and be ourselves is something that I think is forever evolving as people. But I'd love to hear in your experience and your story with all of the pots that you have your hands in, right? Like how has your culture and like all of who you are, how has your upbringing contributed to that?
It's funny you bring that up. Last night I literally tweeted like, no one talks about the pressures of being a first generation daughter to Haitian immigrants because, my parents are aging. So there's like that additional pressure. As far as adolescence, I think a lot of us, who are first generation, we saw our parents, we grew up, watching our parents struggle, whether it was like a language barrier, also working, like my parents always worked multiple jobs. And I think for me, it's always like that go-getter mentality. And also, I mentioned the other part of that was like, I didn't have the luxury as a kid, like to just be a kid. Like I kind of had to be out here translating. I was filling out forms at like 8, I have younger siblings, so I was helping them navigate. So it was kind of like I was doing more than what would normally be expected. And then on top of that, I think when we're children of immigrants or we're immigrants children ourselves, you have to navigate like this dual identity because you're for me, I'm Haitian at home, And then you know, you want to be American outside, and a lot of times there's a lot of like they conflict, you know, and so I think there's that. So just learning how to navigate, I think the hustler and the go-getter mentality, ways that it's hindered the dysfunction of some parts of our culture, and you know, particularly like mental health. You know, I like to remind, like I tell my siblings this, you know, because we have moments where we're like, oh my god, like they're so crazy and da 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 da, and it's like, but it's also humbling to remember, like, you know, we had the luxury of growing up in an alternate culture, so we had something else to like to kind of like compare and gauge, like, is this okay, is this not okay? And so that's part of the privilege too, you know, and also realizing that a lot of, you know, our families, at least my family, like grew up on survival mode. So there's things my mother does that drives me nuts, but I know it comes up out of, you know, whatever she went through as a child too, you know. And so I think in terms of like just having to navigate the world as a child, but also I think it also just kind of made me like, not that I'm not afraid, but I'm like, that's not going to stop me from trying something, you know, or like, let's see how this goes. But at the same time, like, I think that being quick to pivot as well is like really important. And I think we saw our parents do that a lot because, you know, this, like my parents were never without a job, because it was like, this ain't looking right, I'm gonna hop in another, you know what I mean? There was always like something in place, like, you know. So I think there's a lot of pros to it, but there's quite a few cons too. And so like even at this age, it's like undoing a lot of like what I learned, like some things that are cultural, having to deal with like the expectations and the pressures of being first generation. And honestly, like this entrepreneurial route, it conflicts with like the expectations that they have of you too, you know, because she can't understand like, why aren't you further in your career? And it's like, because that's not what my focus is, you know. And so it's a lot. Like I feel like we could talk about that forever.
I know, like one thing I wanted to follow up with that, because I dealt with the same thing too. I went to school for one thing, and I'm in a complete different field from what I went to school for. My biggest part, I think, that made it so hard, and I had to fight, was the disappointment and like that expectation that they set on you. Like, hey, this is, like you said, go to school, become a lawyer, a doctor, whatever, and do that. They have that expectation, and when you don't meet it, it's like there's a disappointment there that they have.
Right.
And if they support you, there's still that disappointment that I think that fear in first generation kids is always there. You know, you might want to do this, you want to start your business, you want to do something completely different, or you go to college and you realize this degree that I'm studying, this field that I'm in, I don't care about this. I don't want to do this. Imagine coming out to your parents telling them, hey, I know you worked your ass off for all these years. I'm going to college now. Yeah, I don't want to do this. Like it's one of those hard, like the hardest thing I think any first generation kid has to endure and go through on there. It's like, I don't know. There's no way to explain it if you haven't been through it, how hard that is on there.
It's that constant conflict of, again, like, who am I doing it for? Am I doing it for you because of your sacrifices? Then how do I explain, like, you know, like our parents want us to be happy, right? But I think really, and Genevieve, you said it earlier, where it's about survival mode, right? So like they want you to be happy, but they also want you to survive. And they're always going to think about, well, what if I'm not here? Can you still take care of yourself, right? And so like they want to die almost with contentment that like you're okay.
Yeah.
We fit as parents, like what's the point?
Right.
You know, but it's just like helping them to understand the value in following your heart, and that understanding that happiness might not always look like a 7-6-figure salary, but happiness is like waking up every day and genuinely like loving myself and loving my partner and loving my children and like being present in that evolution of life itself. So,
right. I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with you also, I know you've done the Brunch Club and kind of help get people in certain spaces that we, as we know in this city, are not always welcome to. I wouldn't say not welcome to or not privy to. My question for you is, what have you experienced in trying to get into these places? Have you gotten any type of, pushback or resistance from ownership or management of these locations when you try to do events there?
Um, the unfortunate thing about the Brunch Club is like we launched in January, and just when we were about to have our second event in March was literally the week where they shut everything down. So we didn't have an opportunity to like really see it all the way through. And while it's something it's myself and she's my cousin. We were doing it together. So honestly, not enough experiences in that sense to really speak on. But I think, a lot of the things that I think, and I feel like artists in the city can speak to it, like on the music scene, it's like, because we don't own a lot of the spaces, it's kind of really hard to find a space that is like willing to accommodate us. And then I think it's like that whole stigma of like, they're gonna have Black people in the establishment. It's like this is assumption that, it's gonna bring a certain type of crowd, because we're all the same, right? When we're not. And so like, yeah, the struggles of like wanting to play the music you want to play, having it at the time that you want to have it. There's a reason why there's so many, brunch events during the day here, because a lot of these same establishments would not be open to having that same type of music playing in the evening. And I think also it's just hard. I think on one end I don't know. I feel so strongly about it. I think it's twofold. I think on one end we need to push these establishments. We need to own more of these establishments. That's where it is at the crux of it. It's like we just need to own it, so it's not an issue. Like if you own it, then it's understood why I want to play a certain type of music, why a certain type of menu. You know what I mean? So we got to start there. But then I think also too, we need to be more. I think as people in this city, we need to be more willing to go outside of our comfort zones and try other places and really like take up space, even if it means we got to go out of our way a little bit. So it's definitely twofold. At the end of the day, money talks. So we were talking to different establishments, and when we were talking numbers, obviously very open to it. I learned my cousin works in the restaurant industry, so she had like a feel like some knowledge that was really helpful, like how to ask for certain days, like how they're gonna price, why it costs more on a Saturday than a Sunday, and so like that's really helpful to learn too. Like if you guys are planning something, like how to ask the right questions, because otherwise you won't get the answer that you want. Yeah, so like I said, we didn't really get that far into really exploring that, so I could answer it fully and confidently. But the limited experience that I have, like that's what I could speak to.
I mean, I think it sounds like you also have to do a lot of research, right? So it's like before you jump in with the goal and the vision, you're still dropping the gem of doing the research and having the conversations with folks who are within the industries that you want to tap into. And just having that perspective that can tap into like your blind spot is super helpful as you're executing on the vision and the steps. So once you are able to launch all of that, we're wishing you the best of luck from the TUC family and the world, and we can't wait to be part of it virtually or in person, whatever. I don't know
really about the virtual thing, but it is what it is.
I don't know what's going on in the world here, but as we do come up close to the wrap up of time, I did want to ask my last question to you, which was, like as you're going through all of these experiences, and I know you said earlier that, you still haven't quite figured out like what that next big step or like that next project is going to be. But maybe share what you're thinking about, like exploring, and maybe end on some words of encouragement or advice that you would have for any entrepreneurs who might have their hands in several projects at the same time, and feel like all of that is helping them to fulfill their purpose, and just like how do they navigate it and truly like prioritize?
Sure. Moving forward, the merch will be back very soon as I get my drop shipping together. So that's actually my first priority. The events list, I'm still trying to revamp that. Like I'm thinking maybe it might be a monthly type of situation. moving forward. Look out for the entrepreneurial group that I'll be rolling out very soon. I have a couple things, but I'm still thinking about it. Like I'm thinking about like a podcast. I'm thinking about and this is like some other in-person things. So, but those are like way down the line. As far as advice to any entrepreneur, I guess a couple things. I think one, purpose and being true to yourself is important. A lot of times the pressure of social media can have you out here really like just doing things just to do it. But I think doing things with intention is very important. I think having integrity is very important. And I think also like for me, like take your time. Like that's where I'm at. And I think that's what I had to learn this year is like you're not gonna always have every single piece. Like definitely start if you want to start and you feel like you're ready to, but always like, you're not always going to have everything perfect. You're not always going to have the answer. You're not going to know everything. And, it's better to just start. But definitely take your time. Like, that's where I'm at with it. Like, sometimes we really are in a microwave generation where like we read these things about people and success and we think it's like, it's overnight, and it's like it's really not. It's like years and years. You saw it overnight. Like you learned about the person today, and you think they just pop up today, but they probably been grinding for like 10 years, So there's that. But that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much. And I see.
Yeah, I always like to end the show by asking where can people help support you. So where they can follow you on social media, pages they can hopefully when these come back in line, starts to help support you. So let the collective know.
Sure, you can definitely follow me on social media. I'm most active on Instagram and Twitter to some extent, but my personal Instagram is Genevieve_Angelique. And then obviously follow the Other Boston. It's at the Other Boston on Instagram. The merch will be back soon. I'm trying to be where the money reside, and that's where the money was at. And, so definitely support there. But yeah, I'm, send me emails, DM. You got some thoughts, some questions? I'm open. I get back to everybody. Because I feel like everybody is important. So that's it. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Genevieve, for your time. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. You were phenomenal to have on our first episode of season 3. The Other Boston is, in fact, here in Boston, folks. We are the other, well, people try to other us as far as like people of color and millennials. We are very much part of the conversation. We are game changers. One step at a time, following through with all of our visions and all of our passions. So thank you so much again, Genevieve, for all of the work that you do and even your desires in creating a space where entrepreneurs of color can get together and just share and fellowship with each other about their own experience of isolation while building a collective in this work. So it's not just about us living and thriving and fulfilling our purposes internally and mentally, cerebrally, but also about putting it out there, right, in the world. Here you are again with Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Hyde Park, 4 neighborhoods in the city of Boston that are heavily populated by Black folk in the Black diaspora all together, whether you're African Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean, whatever it is, we're out here. African-American, and like all of our lives matter, and all of this important history that we're documenting and safe spaces that we're creating for ourselves are significant. So thank you for not only caring about your own vision, but incorporating entrepreneurs in that as well and shouting them out any opportunity that you get. So we wish you the best of luck. And
thank you for having me. Thank you. I appreciate it. And best of luck to the rest of your season.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Have a good night.
You too.
Folks, it's always amazing for us to be able to have a celebrity guest. Again, some of our Boston unsung heroes. Genevieve is being a trailblazer with her shirts. And if you don't know now, you know that these are by her, the Other Boston. So NIC and I are able to rock them gracefully. My TUC fam gifted me one. So I'm happy. Thank you guys. I love you all so much. But again, continue to support and buy Black and support our entrepreneurs and our people who are out here doing a lot of great work. Many of us are trying to fill in voids and address voids that we do not have addressed for ourselves. And so let's keep the momentum going and let's stay connected.
Yes. As always, we want to say thank you to all our listeners. Thank you to everybody that's following us online on Instagram. Make sure to follow us Make sure to support us online because that's where we interact on Instagram with all of our guests. So we thank you. This is our fourth season, y'all. We're starting our fourth season. We've been doing this for 3 years. Yeah, third year, but our fourth season. We always get season ahead. So 3 years we've been doing this, and it's been nothing but an amazing ride. We've learned so much. We've met so many different people. It's amazing. Sometimes I go out and I see the different people that we've had on the show, and I love seeing that. I love seeing where they started and where they are at now. So we'll continue to bring you these entrepreneurs throughout this city, not just this city. Nowadays that we're doing stuff online, we can bring you people from around the world, the U.S. So we'll continue to do that for the collective and continue to support us.
Absolutely. So again, we are nothing without all of you. One of our guests asked us, well, who are we repping out of this Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Hyde Park? I'd like to say that I'm repping every neighborhood on this entire shirt. However,
Mattapan, baby.
I'll also say I was
Genevieve.
I was born in Mattapan and raised in Hyde Park, and I now own my first property in Hyde Park. So I will rep, I guess, Hyde Park the most, if you will. But my heart is truly with all of the neighborhoods in Boston, even ones that are not listed on these shirts. But Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Hyde Park have my heart in a different kind of way, because this is truly like where Black people are rooted, deeply rooted in. And I mean, Malcolm X has history here, MLK has history here. I mean, like, we don't, the list goes on and on as far as impact. So we out here. If you're looking to follow us and stay connected, please be sure to follow the Urban Collective Show on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. We're there. Follow us on Facebook, the Urban Collective Show. And if you have any questions, or if you'd like to be a guest, or if you have any referrals of folks you think would be phenomenal to have on our show, please feel free to email us at theurbancollectiveshow@gmail.com. We are here for you all always. Thank you so much for your consistent support and rocking with the collective. I am because you are. Thank you.
And as always, we like to end the show with a quote. I wanted to do a slightly little different thing, not just end it with a quote, but a little poem. This poem is by Leslie Dwight. And, we had a crazy 2020. So this is kind of based on the year that we all experienced and have gone through. It'll be talked about for many, many generations. So it goes like this. What if 2020 is the year we've been waiting for? A year so uncomfortable, so painful, so scary, so raw, that it finally forces us to grow. A year that screams so loud, finally awakening us from our ignorant slumber. A year we finally accept the need for change, declare change, work for change, become the change. A year we finally been together instead of pushing each other further apart. 2020 isn't canceled, but rather the most important year of them all. That is by Leslie Dwight. I think it's something that, when they always tell you, therapists or anything like that, when you go through a traumatic experience, you got to take out what you learned from that. And I hope everybody learned the lesson from this past year and continue to take advantage of life. We're alive, people. We're living, and enjoy this world, enjoy the life that you have. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. We'll catch you in the next 2 weeks with our next episode, where we will What do you say?
That's a special episode coming up soon. Get Clubhouse Collective.
Yes. If any of you have iPhone, I think Clubhouse is still exclusive to iPhone members. So please join. Get Clubhouse. And then stay tuned, because my favorite month, not only because it's Black History Month, but also because it's my birthday. It's coming up in February. So we have a great, great, great month lined up for you all ahead. As always, thank you for rocking with us. And I'm Bernadine Truth, and I'll see you soon.
Man, I see.
Awesome. Check y'all out later. The Collective.